because I know he's been robbed and I've been robbed. You guys are entirely different. This is a little bit different situation because he himself told me he had. Let me see. What was the big head honcho here? No. His name.
Matt Moneymaker?
No. The guy that was up here with her.
Oh, you mean Doug Herchak?
Yeah, him. He told me he had better than $700,000 a year budget. She had almost that again herself. I mean, everything they had was donated. They couldn't come up with a better. But when I saw that tape, I was never been so disgusted in my life because they had 2 cops out here. I wasn't in uniform. I didn't have an automatic weapon. I wasn't shaking like a leaf with somebody looking at me. This kind of bullshit. There was no. When I mentioned exactly what it looked like, they just put in bits and pieces of that. There was no mention of the troopers. All these other. See, they made it look like a country bumpkin up in the boonies. Was the only one that saw it. There were 7 police officers here the initial night. I was not here. I was here the second or third night it was. Because I was here on a Tuesday night because my Tuesday night was the only night I had off.
Yeah, you were here on the 20th.
And it just makes what makes me disgusted is that I watched this on the news, our local news station down in Albany, and they laughed about it. They laughed at me. When they laughed at that thing, they laughed at me, and they laughed at the town of Whitehall, they laughed at the village, they laughed at everybody. That's what it was. These people are there to report the news, and I guess it's at your expense, you know. And I got so disgusted, I called the station manager. That same night, while they were still on the air, I called the station manager, and I went up one side of them, down the other. And I said, I'm sorry I didn't have Fox 23, that I didn't call them and do their interview. Because I said, you'll never get nothing from me again. That's old news. We're not even really interested. Old news? What's this do? Happen every other day? You know? But anyway, that's the extent of it. It's like I say, it's nothing they can ever take away from me. I've always got it. So do a few other people. They've got it. So say what they want. All I know is what I saw, and it wasn't anything made up, and it wasn't a fake, and it wasn't a phony. What I saw was real, and it doesn't belong here. Maybe it does. Maybe we don't.
Remember what your father said? The quotation your dad had. His father says, "I'm not saying it's a monster or anything, but it's no known animal belongs here in the Adirondacks. This part of the state." Yeah. You know, I can't imagine how long ago it's been there since the second marker fell off in there. I had one marked in the 7 and the 8-foot level, and I don't know when one fell off in there. Do you?
It was there when we did the shoot there. What was it, a month and a half, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, whatever.
Both of them?
Yep, they were both there.
Okay.
Yep, they were both there. But it made me, the initial night made me think twice. I mean, because it's my brother and Marty Paddock. I mean, you know, that's what made me think twice. I mean, these guys were scared to death. These guys were scared. But I in turn, I had to call my father. I think it was my father was the first one I called and told him what had happened because he wanted to be down here because I figured I'd come out here. He'd have to cover my shift. And I in turn called the state police and the sheriffs. And I was surprised because I told them, I said, this is no joke. And they were here like that. They were here like that. I can remember almost every one of them. Washburn himself was almost that big a man. he's long gone retired. Jim Donovan, he's about that tall, but he's built like a bear. You see Steve Craig, if I remember right, he was on duty. Steve's about 6'5", 6'6". These are all big guys, big troopers, you know. The thing of it is, they all compared stories afterwards. They all saw it, but everybody had to deny it.
I know Glenn LaRose there.
Glenn LaRose got into this big time. I mean, he
when he was on duty.
On duty, yep.
Yeah, he was driving along and he seen this huge image towering over the hedgerow. He says like 4 feet above the hedgerow. So, all these people at one time or another had seen or heard something. So, and like Brian said, they were told to keep quiet about it. And I know this to be bad because I was trying to get the story when I was trying to write about it for the book. You know, you were like pulling teeth trying to get information, but after they got to know you, they did speak out. But they was telling you off the record most of it.
Yep.
So, and to this day, that's where a lot of it stays.
This area's got like a couple hundred years of history of this, going back to Rogers Rangers making mention of it, to Champlain.
All the way back to Champlain, that's right. Same with Champlain had reports.
I recall an 1879 article in Vermont, in the New York Times about Palamo, Vermont, regarding a wild man seen by 2 boys hunting, and they described it as much as some of the modern day descriptions are being described at. You know, reddish brown to dark brown to long hair to walking with a wide gait to screaming to. It's just amazing how this thing's been going on since, you know, the white man has been up here and been documented, and it's still going on to this day.
It even goes back into Indian folklore.
Absolutely.
All the way back into Indian folklore, long before we were even here.
I think the Iroquois called it Nyanyet.
Something yeah.
Very similar to that.
We just watched a movie on that not too long ago. It was mentioned.
A lot of the Indians call it Weejek.
Weejek, that's it. That's the one.
Weejek, which means wet skin. So,
Or slippery skin.
or slippery skin was really a white man's term, though. That was some of the earlier settlers in Vermont kind of name for it.
I think that there was some papers back in the colonial times referring to old slippery skin.
That's right.
And that's what they called it.
The town historian who dug up all that information in the historical record that we use in the book. And that's where it all came from. Before that, it would have been no information. We never would have found it. It was so buried so deeply without the proper credentials, you couldn't find it. But he's the first one to bring out that all about Champlain, writing about it in his ledgers, about the Indian folklore legends they had. And then went on from there. But yeah, slippery skin was really a term there used by the white settlers because it was knocking over their manure piles and pulling up their fence rails and various things of that sort. But that was the name they had for it. But the Indians called it Weejek. Yep. They also call it Stone Giant too, if you recall.
Stone giants.
Yep.
The Shasta Indians called them Oma, and they're out Pacific Northwest between man and the mountain. And it's amazing how every time not only is there water, but there's also always mountains nearby as well. So, Paul might be onto something about UFO activity. I kind of believe it's more of an earthly explanation, but I think that some of this activity may draw them out as if, you know, I'm an ocean fisherman, and I know if I see a blue shark in the ocean, there's always the possibility of getting a bigger fish or something that you're not normally because it stirs them up. And that may be a possibility too.
Everybody's got their input.
Absolutely.
You know? I'd like to see it solved in my lifetime.
I know I would.
Absolutely.
I really would.
I'm a very strong believer in the theory of it evolving from the giant Pithecus blackeye, which is that prehistoric gorilla they found the bones of in China, which this gorilla stood 8-9 feet tall on its haunches. And as we evolved from the gorilla, as you know, Darwin's theory of evolution, this thing perhaps evolved from the giant Pithecus blackeye into what we know as Sasquatch today. And it'd be very feasible that, again, with the Indians coming over from the land bridge when, you know, through the Bering Strait, that's why we always had a higher concentration of Indians on the West Coast. That's why I believe that, or I should say Native Americans, on the West Coast, just as I believe the majority of them are on the West Coast. As far as Sasquatch is concerned, the majority of the sightings are on the West Coast because they're more numerous there. But yet, there were Native Americans in Florida, there were Native Americans in Louisiana and Texas, and as well as Maine, all 50 states, and or I should say all 48 contiguous states. And there's been sightings in all 48 contiguous states. And there have been sightings in Alaska. The only place is Hawaii.
There you go.
He might have been onto something there.
That could be. He knew something we didn't know at the time.
Well, I guess it pretty well covers it.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know what to ask. Is there anything else you'd want to add, or?
Oh, you grabbed the tripod.
I mean, you guys kept on saying, I was about to ask you a question and you'd answer. I was just going to ask you, what do you think it'll be solved in your lifetime? You went into that, so.
Well, we discussed that many times.
Oh, yeah.
You're doing my job for me. I think we just need to get a couple shots.
We're just going to get some static shots of the post and fields and
over here.
go over there. It's not wide enough. I'm gonna get the shot. Don't worry. Mm-hmm.
I honestly saw it bigger. Yeah, I could see at least 4. But I can remember there was no neck. That was the odd thing. It was just like this. I think it was a snowman there. I can't recall a neck. But it was.
That's a common.
Because everybody says about a pig nose. I don't remember a nose, and I don't. When it let out the screech, I can't say I saw Pete. All I can remember is the screech and bringing its hands right up.
Would you say it might have been?
Wasn't that a different kind of pig? Have you ever heard a cow out in the meadow at night? I did. Okay. I would say be closer to a cow off in a distance than a pig. Not a pig squeal. Not a pig squeal.
Oh wow. Big speakers.
Any results?
I don't think so. No recorded results. I mean, it's so goddamn loud you couldn't hear it if they did call back.
Wow.
Oh.
It's crazy.
So this was your brainstorm?
His phone?
I don't have the polyop screamer, which is probably one of the best screamers.
What's in the background there?
Dog.
No, the other thing.
That's what they think.
Is. Right
Yeah.
there.
That's what
Subject.
Similar to that, only deeper toned. There was no squeal involved. It was. To me, it was in pain. It sounded like it was in pain to me. It'd be like somebody.
Anguish.
It was probably
Well,
like wearing
alarming.
night vision, then jumping out into the light. You know.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
like I said, it's 250,000 candle power. Just,
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a strong flashlight must have had too.
but the eyes were just like I said, you took a tennis ball and they were like this. They weren't like ours recessed in there. They were out.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Wow. Sorry.
That's what I saw. And they were red. I mean, just as red as could be. I remember that color, man. The color. In a straight line. A perfectly straight line. Probably talking 4 miles. That's nothing. Not for something that gets.
Where's those pictures? In the back here?
The footprint? You know, I was kind of looking at it.
The initial, you asked me the initial.
This is
I wear a 10.
bed.
Oh wow.
It's a dried up creek bed down along the Pontley River in a straight line, maybe 1.5 miles from here. And back where this was, right about where that next tree is down there, there's a big, huge cave opening, but you get in, you have to squash down, then you look down in there and it opens up. It's dead. I mean, there's nothing there. It might be, we could probably all get in it, but we'd be able to cramp right full of bones, all kinds of animal bones in there. That's where he found that. And I went down and I just happened to look, I said, geez, there's a cave. I'm gonna go check the cave out. And I got up in there. But I know supposedly, other people have talked, there's 2 caves between here and the Carvers Falls Dam. And a guy from Hydeville and a guy from Rutland went in it, and they went back. They had oxygen tanks on. That's how far back. I don't know where this cave is. I've never come across this cave.
No, it's the only one I've seen.
Now I've heard 5, 6, 7 different fishermen tell me there's a big cave down there. It's a small entrance to get into, but you get in there and it opens up. And these guys from Vermont went in there with oxygen tanks. This is 15, 20 years ago.
Well, at the creek bed there, it flows out of that cave there. Think of an ice cream cone. You know, large opening, and it funnels back in. And then there's a drop off that goes down to a cavern. It's about maybe 4 foot high, something like that.
Yeah.
And you would have to crawl from there. So.
That's about 15 minutes walk right there, 20 the most, in front of the Carvers Falls Dam on the New York side.
Yeah.
That right there.
Yeah.
And right across from that now is all this, the state of Vermont bought all this sanctuary people. My God, there's got to be 1,500 acres back in there. It's just all swamp, old fields, woodland. Nobody does anything with it. It's sanctuary people bought it, just like East Bay and South Bay, where they're buying up all this old marsh property, and it's all sanctuary. People in the state of Vermont.
I had some archaeologists come to the house about 7, 8 years ago, and they were looking down in South Bay for evidence of archaeological material. And they said they were coming out of the heavy brush, they seen these barefoot prints, and they said they were quite large. And I said, well, try to tell me how large. Maybe 15, 16 inches. And they were walking along the shoreline, but they said they went back into the woods, and along that shoreline they noted there's a lot of broken glass where people's gone there fishing over the years and broke their beer bottles or whatever. So they thought, who would be walking around there barefooted, And the size of the print naturally got their attention, so that's the reason why they told me about it. But these stories are consistently going on all the time in this area. You know, like I told you before, Brian's story was really the cornerstone, really the glue and nuts and bolts that held everything else together, and everything after that are just stories, you know, that fall in place. So without his story, with all the details, it would have been really nothing.
Yeah, if it wasn't for his story, I probably would have never knew.
Yeah.
All right,
That's
Okay.
right.
It's good. Would you mind standing by the door and tell me what year it is and and anything else good about it?
It's a 1980 Vet. We had it totally customized. It has a marine shifting lever there. It's actually a sword. And it's been hopped up a little bit. We have custom paint on it. 60% of the engine's chromed. That's pretty much basically it.
State things, you know what I mean? Like, if I say, what is your most interesting experience, say, my most interesting experience was, you know what I'm saying? Just so it's...
Lead off the response to the question.
Yeah, basically. You on? Okay. Could you just state your name, your age, and exactly what your involvement is?
I'm Bill Brand, and I'm now 66 years old, and I'm retired. And my interest has basically been in Sasquatch research, both writing stories about it, and I'm basically involved with archaeological digs throughout New York State, from the Canadian border to Alabama. And I'm interested in doing car shows to raise money for whatever good benefit that may be out there that needs it.
You mentioned that you're displaying this car for a specific benefit. What exactly was that?
I didn't catch what you're saying. You got to speak up a little louder.
I'm sorry. You mentioned to me earlier about showing the car
Yeah,
for the veterans.
that's what I just talked about. We're going to do that. I just figured I just covered that.
Okay. Well, just you didn't mention specifically what it was for, though. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Pick it up here.
Yeah.
Well, the car is going to be shown next week there for a benefit for the armed forces in Iraq and Iran. And it'd be approximately 150, 200 cars take involved.
Okay. When was the first time you heard of Bigfoot?
Probably about 1957, somewhere in there. became interested in it shortly after the story started breaking in Whitehall, which I became a part of within a matter of days.
What is your most interesting experience?
Probably some of the archaeological digs, finding Indian burial sites, reporting them, and cataloging both in photograph as well as archaeological study information.
What do you find most interesting about the Bigfoot phenomenon?
It hasn't been solved yet, basically. We still don't know what it is. We don't have a specimen. And I think it's a flesh and blood creature, definitely an animal of the wild that does exist at all. But all the research that's been done doesn't prove one way or the other at this current time.
Do you find that frustrating?
Well, I think most people have been doing it for almost 30 years. So.
When you tell people that you're a Sasquatch investigator, how do they usually react?
Well, mostly it's the people that had sightings I'm talking to. They had personal experiences, or they know someone that had. It's not speaking basically before a group of people who had prior no knowledge toward the subject at all and what they read in the newspapers. They probably formed their own opinion later on, but at the time it's basically the witnesses themselves, one-on-one.
How would you describe the Bigfoot community?
Well, it seems to be in just about every state in the union. So you have to be a growing population or a breeding population anyways. But there is some evidence, or at least why some people believe, that it's interbreeding. It may be results of so many different types. Some short, some tall, some 3 toes, some 4 toes, some 5 toes. That's pretty much speculation, but I haven't really come to conclusions on that myself.
So if you had to describe the creature yourself, how would you personally describe it?
Man-like, intelligent, certainly a survivor, and it goes back to the time the Native Americans were occupying northern part of New York State as well as some of the other states. I would say it is definitely a survivor.
How sure are you that Bigfoot exists?
Well, that's a pretty open question right there. We don't have any proof that it doesn't either. So I would say that until proven otherwise, we've got to give it the benefit of the doubt like we would anything else. And I actually think it is an endangered species because, we don't have one in captivity, and I don't know if we ever will. But as of right now, it should be treated like an endangered species.
How would one react in captivity?
After they found one?
If they were to find one and keep it in captivity, how would it handle that? How would it behave?
Well, I think the scientific community should be involved in that. That shouldn't be up to an individual to have one in captivity, for self-profit or anything like that. It should be, if it's one's in captivity, it should be for scientific study, see what we can learn from it, and then release back to the wilds.
If one were found, do you believe that the Sasquatch community... I'm sorry, let me start that again. If one were to be found, do you think that the scientific community would take over and researchers like yourself would be kind of pushed to the background?
Well, I would say yes, because, they're the ones there who's got the degrees, the clout, the expertise, the money funding, and all that to go with it. Definitely, they're the people to run with it. What can, a simple investigator do? I mean, you have no way to house such an animal. You probably don't have the funding to do the proper research. You couldn't hire the necessary technological people to do that type of research. Definitely it should be in the hands, no question about it. It should be in the hands of proper researchers in the scientific community.
Why has so little photographic and physical evidence been found?
Well, there hasn't really been much physical evidence found as far as hair samples and fecal droppings and a few things like that, but there has been hundreds of photographs, and a lot of those are hoaxed. And to this particular point in time, they don't have the answers, and we don't have the necessary material. Whether some of it is locked away, we don't have access to, that's questionable. But at some point in time, I'm sure if there's anything out there, it will be released. Today's technological age, I'm sure it'll be found.
If you were to see one, what do you think your reaction would be?
Once time in a million, probably once in a lifetime. I just wish I had a camera with me, had somebody believe it. I did say one, but that's pretty remote. It's the people that usually see it, it's the people who's not looking for it.
Hold on a second. Do you have a family?
No.
But you are married.
Yes.
And what does your wife think of this, your hobby?
Well, it's just like anything else there, it keeps me busy. It keeps me out of the house, or it keeps me at home, whichever way you want to look at it. No, she had no problem with it at all.
Does she personally believe in it?
Well, she probably believes in the research I've done, but beyond that, we don't have any further proof. We can say all the things in the world to support the fact that there is such thing out there, but we cannot prove it. That's what it all comes right down to. You got to have the proof, otherwise it's nothing more than a fantasy.
If proof is never found within your lifetime, do you feel like as if you've wasted your time?
No, I had the opportunity of being outdoors, meeting individuals. No way at all. I had a full life.
So you have a good time doing this?
Oh yes, absolutely. It's the caliber of the people you meet. Some of those are probably one time in a million you would meet these people. Unless it was this subject matter, you probably would never meet them.
Brian today spoke of possible UFO connection to the Bigfoot. Do you believe in this?
Well, I also know, doing the research at the time it was all taking place, there was many UFO sightings going down. And one can draw a connection. Whether that is the proper connection, I have no way of knowing. But yes, there was many UFO sightings in Whitehall and throughout the area over the period of time. Over 2 weeks, I believe it was.
And how much time out of your life do you put towards researching Bigfoot?
Well, in 30 years, a lot of hours. I would have no idea how many to measure. How do you begin to measure the time you spent in the woods, or the time you spent interviewing or traveling down the road? Much like what you're doing now, going to one state to another, interviewing people. How do you put a time on that?
Well, how many hours a week do you think?
Probably 6-7 hours, at least.
And what did you do? What was your career before you were retired?
I was a supervisor there for Jackson Manufacturing, which is a finishing company there. They finished clocks for St. Thomas. I was in charge of the paint room.
And will you continue researching Bigfoot for as long as until it's found?
Well, let's say I'm getting older now, and it'll have to be younger people, a lot like yourselves, I'm seeing in front of me there, to take and try to prove one way or the other. Yes, I've always had probably an interest in it.
If you had 1 minute to convince someone that Bigfoot is a real creature, what would you say?
Well, I used to say, well, look at the Roger Patterson film, but I don't know if I can even do that no more. I would say, well, based on all the evidence that's been put forth, you have to make up your own conclusions of that. I can't sway your mind one way or the other. Either you do or you don't.
Are you for or against killing it?
Well, actually, I'm pretty much in favor of protecting it.
How many Bigfoot do you estimate are left in the continent, and are they being threatened?
Now you're really fishing now. I don't know. Just throw a figure out there for you, probably 300-500, who knows? I have no way of knowing. Let me ask you that question. How many you figures out there?
Well, I think there's 1,000. That's based on nothing.
Okay.
I suppose that's it, Phil, if you have any more questions.
I don't know if you want to talk about any of the local, or the cover-up, or not de-cover-up, or any cover-ups that are possible in the area.
No, not really, because there is some police officers like Brian, for example.
Right.
He's still got his feet in quicksand, and we don't want any kind of repercussion going back on any of the others.
Okay.
Even though some are retiring, I
You
was
wanna
mentioning
bring
some of
heat
these
to 'em?
people are having operations done now, and they're getting up in years. I mean, these people had to. I'm 66 now. It's hard to believe, but these people had to be in their 70s, many of them. So I think we just sidestepped that.
Alright, I suppose that's it.
That's good.
Anything else you need to add, or?
No.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah.
What do you think?
You have anything you just want to say?
I think we pretty well covered it. What's left to say?
No, I
I
think.
mean,
That's good.
went out there in the field. We, done everything. I put my 2 cents worth in there with Brian, and what's left,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Unless you want to photograph a cast there, I took near Corning, New York, and this.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
we'd love to see
Yeah,
your
I'll
cast.
take
All
it.
right.
You could just sit. You
Yeah.
could sit and show it to us there.
All right.
Right there.
Let him go first.
Hi.
My glasses are so darn dark, I can't tell which is which here now.
How's the light
Some of these are second generation. Some of these I was able to make copies off and others. Or you want to take in the light there? I want you to notice the bulge on the side of the foot. You see that? These are like several hundred of these prints were around there. I was saying down in Corning, New York. A large bulge out, protrudes out.
Right
Yep. All of them had that bulge on the side of them. And you can see it was 5-toed, you could just barely make them out. The original cast that they had was far better than, second generation. But, it's such fragile material, every time you touch it, it starts falling apart. Oh, excuse me. How do you want them? And some places where you can see them well, or put them against something look dark.
Can you see
Like I said,
one?
I put them on something red for you.
Yeah, that'd be great, actually. These are your two favorite?
What's that?
Are these the two best
No,
ones? Or?
no.
Could you describe the prints for us?
Where they were found and everything?
Well, they're found near Corning, New York. Gravel Road. People don't know what their name used. But there was just probably 2 of several hundred tracks in the location. It was on private property near a man-made pond. The area there was completely overran by curious people and dogs, kids, and whatever. And they destroyed many footprints. And the fellow that took these took it with a very glass-like material that he made the cast out of. Working for Corning at the time, he had some of this material with him. This is all he had. So he made the cast and then made copies off of them. Since then, the original cast is now gone, and this all remains of what took place there.
Can you show us where the toes are? Can you show us where the toes are?
It's a big toe, and there's your outline of so on. It was 5-toed. Can you see the angle? 1, 2, 3, 4, and the big one 5. This is a large bulge right here. It's either a callus deposit, because each and every track had one of these large balls like in it. And it was 3 separate whatever they were rocking around down there. This one here is not as pronounced, I think basically because of the second generation. I couldn't get the, the detail as they did in the original, but you can see where the toe lines were, and you can maybe make out a little bit of the arch of the foot. Okay, does that wrap that up, does it? Like I said, I've been doing archaeological studies for many, many years. I'm in the process of, relining the walls with everything down here. Started on the other side and just moved across.
Look. Description: black hair with brown highlights. So they obviously.
Within this month or next month, it's supposed to be put it for fitted. What's that?
Rover's last word.
Shoot one.
If you see one,
Shoot one.
shoot it.
She said she say that all the time.
Back tonight, I'll send you an email. Yeah, and then we'll come back like maybe even a weekend or weekday. We can show for like 3, hang out for 2 hours interview, and then if you guys practice at 5.
Usually on weekends, like Saturday or Sunday,
Yeah, right.
They walk across there again, they're gonna get surprised, aren't they, Jeff?
There you go.